Hello everybody, it's Russ and we're back for the Tuesday, September 10th, 2019 edition of Better Crops by Barker video series. Today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about soybeans. I haven't talked all about soybeans through the growing season. There really hasn't been a great deal of things to talk about with the soybean crop locally. We know it all went in sometime generally the first 2 weeks in June, which is 3 weeks to a month later than what we normally would like to see the crop go in. But the day length is kicking in, as most of you are aware. Soybeans respond to day length, and it's kicking in. The crop is starting to mature and come along. I've got two examples here of two different varieties, two different maturities that are from my own soybean demonstration plot. This one here is called an 06A51X. It is a 2650 heat unit bean. This one here is 09A53X, a 2750 heat unit bean, and one that we tend to sell a fair chunk of in this area. You can see the earlier bean is coming in as the leaves are yellowing. They're if you walk into them, they're starting to drop. It basically is full maturity, and it's coming along. Of course, the little later bean is a couple days behind. But I think with both these varieties, we'll be harvesting this one. We're September 10th today. This thing will be ready to go more or less about October 1st. This one will be a few days later, probably, or pretty close, the same thing, maybe the 3rd, the 4th as they mature. But you're not going to get a big difference. There'll be a few days in advantage of this one. People are asking me all the time, what do you think beans are going to yield? And the short answer that I usually give is I don't have a clue. I'm notoriously bad at estimating bean yields. Just because stature can fool you so much. I've actually done some pod counts on this 06A53X. I dug up a number of plants, and they're averaging anywhere between 15 to 20 pods per plant. We've got populations in here of about 170,000 plants to the acre, so it's a pretty healthy stand, and that also has an impact on pods per plant. Well, we got about, as I say, about a 20. High teens to 20. This is 09A53X. The stature is very similar, and a similar pod count on this variety. So at the end of the day, we're not expecting a big yield difference between these two. Excuse me. I apologize for the frog in my throat this morning. But no, we're not expecting a big yield difference between the two of them. The main thing that the reason we planted a bunch of 06A51Xs is just hopefully to give us a couple extra days, earlier harvest, so we can get wheat planted. So that's a couple things. I'm going to move on here and look at another variety here right now. Stay with me. Okay, you can tell right now that I'm standing in a different beast. I've moved, and what I'm in here is a variety known as P15A09X, a Group 1-5 Extend. It's a new variety from Pioneer. For those of you that talk heat units, we're at the 2900 heat unit maturity, and you can see that it's a much bigger, robust thing. You walk into this, and there's places where it's literally up to close to your armpits. It's standing extremely well. Terrific agronomics, but we wanted to illustrate between, I've still got these earlier varieties in my hand here. This is an example of the 15As, and you put them side by side, and it's like a 10 to 12 inch advantage in height for these 15As. You walk into them and you think, wow, these things will run 70 bushel, and they very well might. But the one key difference, and it's why soybeans are so difficult to tell yield-wise when you're looking at them from a stature point of view, the actual pod count on this full season variety is not a lot different than these earlier beans. Remember, they came in at that 15 to 20, 22 seeds per pound, or pods per plant, and I call them more or less an average of 20. We've got the same number of pods on this Group 1-5 maturity. Of course, it's greener and it's not quite as far along just because of the full season nature of it. But the thing is, the internode length, in other words, the distance between pod clusters on this full season bean, is more like 4 to 5 inches in stem length between pod clusters. These earlier beans are like about a 3-inch extension in pod clusters, between internode length, between pod clusters. And so what you get is a much taller bean. It looks like it's going to yield a ton, and I say it may very well. It is a high yielding bean for its maturity. Will it yield a lot more than these shorter, dumpier little 08s and 06s and 09As? Well, we shall get to find out. But stature is a notoriously poor indicator of overall yield. And the good news is we're going to get to find out, and that's the fun part, in about a month from now. So that's it for this morning, and have a great day. It's Farm Show week. It looks like the weather is going to get a little damp, but we're still going to be there on later this week. Take care. We'll talk to you again.